you ready for a new experience? To see life from another point of view? New hope, new expression, new joy. This is your radio hour. Welcome to Viewpoint with Father John.
And welcome, friends. You're tuned into KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, or on the World Wide Web at kcaaradio.com. This is Viewpoint with Father John, and I am your guest host tonight, Dr. John Smith. Many of you may know me. I'm a frequent guest on the show, and I am Father John's chosen fill-in host when he is not around, and he is taking the night off. He is off doing a special spiritual retreat, so send him blessings and love to him and all of the people that are attending the retreat. So good luck. He'll be back next week. And you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Viewpoint with Father John. And also, if you've missed a show or you want to catch up on past shows, you can watch all the past shows on YouTube. Just search Viewpoint with Father John, KCAA. So this week has been an interesting one for me with all the COVID stuff and everything going on. So I just want to make sure everybody's doing their best and doing their part to stay safe and protect yourself from others and protect others from you. Wear a mask. I'm a big believer in that. Some people say, well, I don't think those masks work at all. And I don't know if they do or they don't, but I've been lucky so far, as I'm knocking on wood. I've avoided the virus so far, even though I've been exposed several times. So hopefully those shots and boosters are working, I hope. Anyway, shout out to Claremont Pharmacy, one of Father John's favorite places to go. He always gives them a shout out on his show each week. And so Claremont Pharmacy, it's right on the corner of Arrow and Indian Hill Boulevard in Claremont. And he is a big fan of the pharmacy because he feels that he gets really good personal care there, and they really do watch out for him and take care of him. And then a special shout out to Frank, our engineer, and his business, which is booming, I understand, Lakeside DJ Services at lakesidedjservices.com. And he is an amazing person to put on and celebrate parties and weddings and whatever. He's starting to get booked up because people are starting to schedule weddings and other events. So I would really encourage you to consider him and get in touch with him. You know, the cool thing about what he does, besides the DJ and the music and all of that, is he has a photo booth. Remember the old photo booths? Well, he's got a photo booth, and you can get in there and take photos inside the booth and do whatever you need to do in the booth. Just remember, it'll be on camera, right? So that's, again, lakesidedjservices.com. All of God's children are endowed with extraordinary purpose and ability. Father John's on a quest to help as many people as possible in fully realizing their divinely inspired potential. Disposing a false narrative and embracing genuineness inspires clarity of purpose. Father John's role, and I think I can join him in this mission, in this journey, is to help overcome self-imposed limitations in realizing one's spiritual potential. So you are here with me tonight, and usually I know that when I am on the show with Father John and or if I'm guest hosting, we've tended to talk about topics that were pretty serious. Not that tonight's topic isn't to be taken seriously, but I thought I'd lighten things up a little bit, and I thought maybe we could all use a little cheering up tonight. So I wanted to talk about something that was a little different than usual, at least for me, to talk about, and I want you to go into tonight with an open mind, if you would. And I'm asking you to have an open mind because this particular subject tonight, it's about relationships, but specifically what I'm going to talk about is how to find your soulmate, or how to know if you actually have a soulmate and what that soulmate might look like. Not physically look like, but how would you know whether you are with that person or not? And some people will go, "Oh, that's a bunch of garbage, Dr. Smith. There's no such thing as a soulmate." And there's definitely research on this subject, and I think that most people would agree that yes, there is such a thing, or a person. It is possible to have someone that you are deeply, deeply, deeply connected to, and that person may or may not be the person who's currently in the relationship with you. I'm not saying everybody should leave their relationship and go on a lifelong quest for a soulmate, but how do you know when that person shows up, or how do you know who that person might be? And so we're gonna talk a little bit about that tonight. And again, have an open mind, because I'm not saying what I'm saying is absolute fact, but it's kind of fun to think about. And I know plenty of people who are in very loving, committed relationships. They've been with people for a long time. But those folks are what we might consider a life partner. And there's something a little different about a relationship with a person who we would call a soulmate. And I'll be talking tonight about what some of those things are, things for you to consider, things for you to look for, and hopefully we'll have a little fun with this tonight. Hey, Frank, I'm going to ask Frank just to start off. So what's your take on soulmates? Do you believe in them? Do you think that they exist? Do you think that there is such a person or persons out there that could be potentially what we would call a soulmate?
I do believe there's such thing as a soulmate. I don't think I found one, but I understand the concept. Is just like you kind of know when you know that person has become that connected. You've become that connected to that person. And I feel like it's just kind of a feeling that it would kind of be undescribable, but a feeling that you would get when you just feel a deep enough connection that you've never felt anywhere else before. But not necessarily love, but just a connection.
So it's something, we all describe that feeling we call love. And there's different types of love. There's the love you have for a pet, the love you have for a child, the love you have for another person, and then there's romantic love. And and that certainly is what you're saying is that's certainly a component of a relationship with a soulmate. But you're saying you're thinking that it goes even deeper than just a romantic relationship. There's some connection that's way deeper than that.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, as I go through the description tonight, see whether this helps you to be able to put it in words better, understand it, or if I say something that you don't agree with, just jump in there and say that doesn't sound right, Dr. Smith.
Okay.
Okay. So whether you're in a relationship or not, or you're about to start a new relationship, or you're searching. By the way, ladies, you heard Frank say he is, he's still looking for a soulmate. So you can all line up. He's taking he's taking interviews right now as we speak. So, all right. So here we are. We're either in a relationship, we've been in a relationship, maybe we've been in several relationships, maybe we've are in the middle of a breakup or on our way out of a relationship. Regardless of where you are currently in or out of a relationship, let's think about what that relationship, what is it that we're looking for in that relationship, and then how does it then transpose into a new kind of relationship, this soulmate idea. All right. So if I am in a relationship right now, or getting into a relationship right now. Is this the person? Is this the one? Is this the one who I'm destined to spend my life with? Or have I invested too quickly in this relationship with someone who can never compliment me? Now, you may go like, wow, that's, what's that all about? Well, and I'm not saying that this is true for everyone, but, when that romantic part hits, or if we're self-medicating loneliness, or we're self-medicating not wanting to be by ourselves, sometimes we might find ourselves getting into a relationship with someone who isn't necessarily the person to whom we are destined to spend my life with. How do you know that? Well, we never go into a relationship thinking about the end. And I guess I would say if you're already thinking about the relationship ending, you might as well not go into it at all, because that's exactly what's going to happen. Now, here's one way to think about it, all right? I'm sure most of us have gone to the grocery store, and we are going in and we pick out a carton of milk. Well, somewhere on that carton of milk is a date. It's called an expiration date. So we know that our relationship with that carton of milk is going to end. And it's going to end on or about that date. And if we stay in that relationship with that carton of milk much longer, what's going to happen? Right. It's going to go sour. Exactly. So I'm sure that a lot of folks have stayed in relationships long after the expiration date has passed, and they've drank a lot of sour milk. Some people think, well, maybe the milk will change back and be fresh. Well, in my many years as a therapist, I have rarely, I'm not saying never, but rarely have I ever seen that happen. Once the milk goes sour, it's sour. Does that mean that a person can't change or a relationship can't change? I said, it is generally the case that it doesn't. Once the milk has gone sour, it's almost impossible to make it go fresh. Now, I'll probably get all kinds of cards and letters of people telling me that that's not true, and I am not trying to take the romance out of this. I'm just trying to point out that every relationship ends. What? Well, some last a short time, and we wish they'd have lasted longer. Some last a long time, and they probably should have been shorter. And some last a lifetime, but eventually, for whatever reason, they obviously will all end. The problem is when we go into a relationship, we usually don't think about the relationship ending, and relationships don't come stamped with an expiration date. So sometimes that date happens without us seeing it coming, or without us realizing that that date has arrived. Very often I'll ask folks, when did the milk go sour? Meaning the relationship. And quite often it happened a long time before they actually got out of the relationship or ended the relationship. So all of those years, in many cases, of drinking sour milk, that does a lot of damage to the people in the relationship. It it's a hard one. So there are a lot of folks that get in relationships, and even if the milk is sour or is turning a little bit toward the sour side, they stay in the relationship because, one, many people have this significant fear of being alone. Now, alone doesn't always mean by yourself. Alone can mean that you just don't have any connections with anybody. You can be by yourself, but I know some people who feel alone and they're with somebody, but yet they feel very alone in that relationship. So, but there's a fear of being alone. So the thought is, well, this person is better than nobody else, or not being with someone. I don't know the unknown. Maybe this is the best I can get. Maybe this is what I deserve. Because a lot of us have beliefs about ourselves or about our relationships, and sometimes we'll settle in relationships because we don't We don't think that we deserve something better, or that this is the best we can do, or what if this was the best one I can get, and then I get rid of this person, and then nobody else comes along. So these are really common things that people will say, and how they feel. And so what's that got to do with a soulmate? Well, what I'm saying is that relationships are very complicated, and most of us want to get it right. We want to find somebody who we can spend time with that fulfills us, that helps us to feel complete. Now, I'm not saying, what was the phrase in Jerry Maguire, "You complete me." That's a little codependent, right? I don't need you to be whole. If I need you to be whole, then that's a codependent relationship. If I can be whole and you can be whole and we can be together and complement one another, that's the ideal. That's what we're shooting for. And if you find somebody like that person may fall into the category of soulmate as opposed to life partner. Life partner can be a soulmate. That would be ideal, wouldn't it? But let's not get ahead of ourselves too much yet. Let's see what we're looking at here. So a life partner can be a huge support. It can be a longtime companion, but they're not really capable of enriching our spirit, right? Now, a soulmate can allow us to feel complete, to feel at peace, to feel intact, as if there were no more pieces missing from the puzzle. In other words, I feel whole and complete when I am with you. Not that you are it's not you that completes me, but I can feel complete when I'm with you, if that makes any sense at all. So what does that mean? It means that, as you may all remember, I am the author of a best-selling book called The Authentic Man, A Guide to Happiness and Purpose. And thank you, Frank. He put it up on the little screen there. And that book talks about being true and in integrity with one's true, authentic self. What I found is that people who are in relationships that are not healthy or that are not complete, those relationship, the person in the relationship or the people in the relationship may have a difficult time being their true selves. So as they have problems being their true self, they may put on a mask and be something that they're not, or they don't feel that they can fully be at peace and complete with themselves because they may perceive something as missing. Well, we're going to be going to our first break, and when we come back, I'm going to talk about some of the descriptors. So we'll see you back in just a minute.
The loss of a loved one is one of the most challenging experiences in a person's life. It's hard to know where to turn to make your loved one's final arrangements. Jesse Ruiz at Personal Funeral Planning in Ontario will treat you and your loved one with the respect you deserve. Jesse served in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm and understands what it takes to provide loyal, personalized, and empathetic service to those who need it most. The families of Michael Jackson, Brittany Murphy, Ed McMahon, and many others have trusted Jesse to provide them with the highest level of service and support. To work with Jesse, call 909-762-4027, 909-762-4027, or visit their website, www.4pfp.org, www.4pfp as in personalfuneralplanning.org. Jesse Ruiz and Personal Funeral Planning, veteran-owned and operated, helping you plan a personal, lasting tribute for your loved one. www.4pfp.org.
This is Joe Lyons. This station honors the American workforce with this special salute brought to you by Next Gen Nails and Spa in the Tri-City Center.
Even when our economy slows, thousands of jobs are available to anyone with the motivation to succeed. An entry-level position may not carry the prestige or paycheck one might wish for, but a person's willingness to start at the bottom and work his way up the ladder has resulted in promotion and prosperity. On Labor Day, we salute our hardworking neighbors across the land and right here at home.
Welcome back, friends. You're tuned into KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, or on the World Wide Web at kcaaradio.com. This is Viewpoint with Father John, and I am your guest host tonight, fill-in host, Dr. John Smith, and real excited to be here with you again, and I am happy that Father John trusts me to take the reins of his wonderful show, and hopefully I'll do him justice tonight. We went on break, and we were getting ready to kind of go into some of the components, or some of the how do you know if this person is a soulmate, or what does a soulmate look like? And Frank, you were really good at saying at first that there was something more than just a romantic connection, that it was even deeper. So one of the first descriptors is that it's something deep. It's almost difficult to put that deep, persistent emotion into words, but it's more of a feeling, but it's hard to describe, but it's something deep. Now, what does that mean? Well, the connection goes deeper than most other relationships that we are in or have been in. So it's going to feel quite different when we get into that relationship, or we meet someone where the connection is that strong. All right? The second one, and you guys may think I'm a little bit weird on this, but there's a belief that if you have a soulmate, that you and your soulmate have been together maybe before, if you will, in a past life, or that somehow you've been connected on some level before. Now, I'm sure that some of you have been around people and you go like, boy, this person really seems familiar to me, or this seems like it's really this person, we know each other we don't know each other, but we know each other. How is that? Or many people, and this has happened to me, there's kind of a deja vu experience or a flashback. It's like I have a memory of something, whether I've made it up in my mind or not, but I have a memory of having been with this person before, or having been in this place or this situation, or having had this conversation before, and that's called a deja vu experience. But it's almost like, gosh, this has been said, this has been done. We've been here before. We've crossed paths at some point, and boy, it's a weird feeling, but it's also a good one, right? You understand each other, and I mean understand on a very deep level. You get one another. A lot of couples that I have met or worked with or known, they just don't they accept one another, but they just don't understand one another. They don't get one another. So a soulmate is somebody that really gets you and understands you. And in fact, one little thing that you might note is I've seen couples do this. They finish each other's sentences. It's like they already know what the other person is going to say, and they say it, or they say it, and it's accurate. So finishing the other person's sentences, some people may say it's because, well, they spend a lot of time together, they're just used to one another, but this is a specific form of connection that is specific to soulmates, right? You may have experienced it maybe with a best friend, or with your a parent or whatever. But if you experience it with your partner, it's a telltale sign that the two of you are on that soulmate path. Okay. You fell in love with their faults, right? It wasn't that you ignored them, it's that you saw their faults and you go, that's what makes me love that person. Not just the negative, but that you accepted them who they are. No relationship is perfect. Even soulmates experience ups and downs, but the tie will be so strong that it will be more difficult to break, right? So soulmates have an extraordinary ability to accept and learn to love each other's imperfections, right? You may go, well, that started in our relationship. It started out that way, but then the things that attracted me to this person then became the things that irritated me the most. Yeah, that happens. How did that get resolved? Or did that cause the relationship to end? I've seen that happen. You may have heard me on previous shows use the term intimacy. Now, a lot of times when we think about intimacy, we think of sexual intimacy, which, of course, is a form of intimacy, but emotional intimacy is different than sexual intimacy. But yet, when you can have both the emotional intensity, emotional intimacy, and the sexual, if it's a sexual relationship, that's wonderful. Intimacy means into me you see. Well, into me you see. How much of me am I willing to let you see? So that requires, if I'm willing to let you see me completely as who I am, then that means I have to put a lot of trust in you. Because I'm giving you the keys to my kingdom, and if you know all of these things about me and I show you who I am, will you still love me? Will you still want to be with me if you see who I really am? So intimacy, into me you see. So these relationships are very, very, very intense. A lot of people are not used to having these close, intense relationships. In fact, some people have a hard time with into me you see because of past issues, and so they have a hard time allowing anyone to get into close and get into that deep level. So there's a lot of emotional intensity, right? So even when times get tough, that intensity is important because that energy needs to be focused on solving problems rather than conflict. Not that there won't be some conflict, but that the energy needs to be on resolving problems and issues. And soulmates have the ability to see past that conflict. That could be because they have some realization that they've already been through so much together before and resolved it and come back together that this too shall pass. Soulmate couples usually are united in their focus and their mission together in life. So it's kind of like the two of you are, it's you two against the world. We are one. We are a team. We are united in our purpose and our mission, and that doesn't mean that we have to be on the exact same path, but we support one another in our personal missions, our personal growth. We encourage one another. At the end of the day, it's you and I against the world. So the key ingredient, and I would say this is true in any successful relationship, but especially with a soulmate, is unity above all and the ability to compromise. the ability to compromise. So you can see, so far it's not easy. Relationships in general are not easy. Finding someone who you want to be that close to in a relationship, be careful what you ask for, because it is there's a lot of emotional connection. There's a lot of ups and downs in this. It's just something that you got to really. Everybody seems to say they want it, but I know not everybody's ready for it. Did you have a question you were going to ask me, Frank? You mentioned something that you wanted to ask.
Well, this might be on more of a spiritual sense, but you always hear people say, like, I fell in love, or I grew to love someone, but yet, on the contrary, you also hear people say, I found my soulmate. Do you believe a soulmate is something that's, like, predetermined, or is it a relationship that develops over time and becomes something?
That's an excellent question. Personally, I believe that it's maybe the best way to answer it. It's two people that have some predetermined connection. I don't mean that somebody sat there and said, okay, Frank, you're going to, your soulmate is Susie, but you won't meet Susie because she lives on the other side of the country. You probably won't meet her till you're in your 30s. And I don't think it's that specific. I think, and that's why I'm saying I'm not sure that there is just one soulmate.
That was my next question.
I think that there are possibly more than one. It's just that the odds of you meeting more than one are probably pretty low, since the odds of meeting the first one are pretty low, although you could probably say life has this way of somehow bringing the two of you together. So I don't think there's just one. I think that there is something in the wiring, and maybe the best way to describe it is it's very similar to twins. You know how twins have this really profound mental connection, and that very often you hear stories of twins where something happens to one twin and they're not together and the other twin feels it. Or this has happened. Something has happened in my life, for example. Something happened, and I got a call from this person like within hours, out of the blue. Is everything okay? Well, no, not everything isn't okay. This thing just happened. Well, I just was sitting here, and all of a sudden, it was like I got hit over the head with a frying pan, and it was like it jolted me, and I just had this thought that there was something was really really wrong, and I needed to call you. That's what I'm talking about. So, but that kind of like twins, that mental connection. You may. I've had this happen. I'll be texting or calling somebody, and the next thing I know, I get a text or a phone call from that very person while I'm in the middle of doing it, or I had the idea to do it and I'm just getting ready to do it. Next thing I know, the phone rings. It's weird, but what does that say? It means we're so connected that we almost kind of on a precognitive level we can anticipate the person's next move, or we can, again, you guys are probably going to think I'm crazy tonight, but maybe there is such a thing as mental telepathy when it comes to twins, when it comes to soulmates. Maybe the communication is on a level that is greater than what we might imagine. Yes.
On because the way you speak of a soulmate, the way you've been describing it also brings up another contrast to me from love in general. To be someone's soulmate, like, it has to be a mutual connection, correct? Because you can be in love with someone who's not in love with you, but can you be someone's soulmate if they're not your soulmate as well?
No, that's actually a very good distinction. love is something I feel for another person, but you're right, they may not feel the same toward me. A soulmate, outside of love, a soulmate is going to have a deep desire to be with the other soulmate,
Okay.
right? And that, that can become or be love, or it can blossom into it, but it's going to be a mutual connection and a mutual feeling, as opposed to, well, I love you, but I don't really love you. All right, so
Okay.
yeah.
And that kind of brings me to my next question. If two people are soulmates at one point, are they always destined to be soulmates? Like, will they be soulmates forever? If they're truly soulmates, would they ever not be soulmates anymore?
Once a soulmate, always a soulmate. That's kind of the whole idea,
Okay.
right? And even to the point where, and I personally, I know people who are soulmates, no doubt about it,
Mhm.
who maybe because of their being so close and so alike, that caused tension in the relationship.
Wow.
They split up, kind of went their own way, but always felt empty and unable to fulfill themselves as they felt with the soulmate. And ultimately, eventually, many years later, but they eventually got back together again because they couldn't replicate what they had with the other person with anybody else.
Have you seen the show How I Met Your Mother?
Yeah.
That story reminds me so much of that show. Sorry, I digress.
No. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that is true. Yeah. So, and then you're going to go, well, then what about that spoiled milk theory you just had a little while ago? Well, and you're right. The milk had spoiled, I guess, to the point where the two left and broke up and went their own way, and then years later, somehow magically I think they had stayed in touch with one another over the years, so it wasn't like they completely broke it off altogether, but they certainly had gone their own way. They had gone into other relationships and things like that, but never felt the same and never could replicate what they had with that person with anybody else.
Do you think that sometimes, because you mentioned at the beginning of the show and just now that a relationship, if the milk goes sour, it stays sour. But could it be that a circumstantial issue potentially that prevents two lovers or soulmates from being together? That outside factors, basically, an ex is in their head or something, and then they realize, once that flies out of their way.
So these are, let's just think of them as obstacles, emotional obstacles,
Yes.
or sometimes physical obstacles, or they're a part. So yeah, that definitely that can muddy the waters.
Mhm.
It's really hard to be this close to someone or allow someone to be this close to you. That's the scary part.
Mhm.
Now, the good news about a soulmate is that it feels a lot easier to do that with this person.
It's not forced. So
It's not forced, but it's also, for some reason, with a soulmate, I'm going to feel more comfortable being me with that person, to let my guard down, to let them in. I'm going to just naturally feel safer with them, and that's another part of it, is that with this soulmate, you feel safe and protected. You feel safe and protected. So you trust that they'll have your back and you have their back, and you don't feel so anxious and on guard with a soulmate. So we're getting ready to go into our second break, and when we come back from that break, I got a few more descriptors, and I hope you're enjoying this tonight. It's a fun topic to talk about, and we'll be back in just a minute.
The loss of a loved one is one of the most challenging experiences in a person's life. It's hard to know where to turn to make your loved one's final arrangements. Jesse Ruiz at Personal Funeral Planning in Ontario will treat you and your loved one with the respect you deserve. Jesse served in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm and understands what it takes to provide loyal, personalized, and empathetic service to those who need it most. The families of Michael Jackson, Brittany Murphy, Ed McMahon, and many others have trusted Jesse to provide them with the highest level of service and support. To work with Jesse, call 909-762-4027, 909-762-4027, or visit their website, www.4pfp.org. www.4pfp as in personalfuneralplanning.org. Jesse Ruiz and Personal Funeral Planning, veteran-owned and operated, helping you plan a personal, lasting tribute for your loved one. www.4pfp.org.
Welcome back, friends. You're tuned to KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, or on the World Wide Web at kcaaradio.com. This is Viewpoint with Father John, and I am your guest host tonight, Dr. John Smith. So hope Father John is having a wonderful, powerful retreat and doing great things for other people. That's what he does, and he'll be back next week. So we've been talking so far tonight about soulmates. Appreciate those questions, Frank. Those are really good ones. And if you got any more, feel free to jump in. Let's spend the last part of tonight with, people are going to be asking, well, okay, this soulmate thing, all right. How do I find my soulmate? How would I recognize them? How would I know them? How would I find them? And I'm going to give you some things to look for that I think might be helpful. Soulmates can kind of read each other's minds like an open book. They kind of know, like I said, sometimes they'll finish each other's sentence. They'll be thinking the same thought, or they'll be sort of, thinking along the same lines, and that's very common. So if you're with someone and you find yourself basically communicating without having to speak, finishing each other's sentences, thinking the same thoughts, almost again kind of a telepathy type situation, that's really, really, really a good sign that this person is a soulmate. All right, so communicating without having to speak, right? That's an important one. Thinking the same thoughts at the same time, having pretty much knowing what the other person's going to say or finishing their sentence for them. That's a really, really important one, right? There was a book that was written by a person by the name of Dr. Sue Johnson. She's a clinical psychologist, and she wrote a book called Love Sense, L-O-V-E, Sense, S-E-N-S-E. And she wrote in the book that a soulmate can respond to your emotional signs. They're close to you when you confide. They give you their full attention. They anticipate your requests. They are often reassuring by caressing your hand or putting a hand on your shoulder, kind of reading and knowing what to say and what to do to respond, making you feel very comfortable, and treating you very respectfully. Well, okay, you could say, well, people do that and they're not soulmates. Well, that's true. I mean, those are all great things to have in a relationship, but I'm giving you kind of the overall picture of how this in particular is at a deeper level and a more constant level than we might have in a typical relationship. Another one would be that you are certain and sure on a very deep level that you've found the person. You're going to know. If you're open and aware of your feelings and you you are with this person and you're going to feel it on a very, very deep level. In other words, it's kind of like, well, when you know, all right? So you're going to know it. You're going to feel it. And it's going to be different. And if you've had any experience with relationships, this one will feel very different than any of the other ones. Might so much so that it might be kind of scary at first, because it's going to be it will be shocking, right? There's no need to guess or ask questions when we meet our soulmate, right? We don't need to guess. We know. There also is usually a little telltale sign that tells us that this connection is deeper than anything that you've ever experienced. And it may be a feeling, like a feeling of gratitude, or it may be a little voice in your head that just says, yeah, this is it, this feels right, and you'll know it. So the question is, do you trust yourself enough to know when you know? That's the key. Because if you've been in relationships before and those relationships have not been good ones, or they haven't lasted, or there's been a lot of turmoil, I think, Frank, you mentioned this. You said, well, what happens if, I'm still got my ex in my head, or I'm still reeling from my ex was unfaithful to me, so now I'm having a hard time, trusting and whatever. So yeah, those things can get in the way and block us from from our own true feelings, and maybe keep us from being able to trust that we know when we know. You may say, well, I thought I knew before and it didn't work out. Well, you'll know when you know. There's a chemistry, right? Just it's like a magnetism or an electricity, and that can take the form of a sexual nature, but it also is just you work together in concert, whether that's sexually or emotionally or whatever. It's that there's the chemistry is so strong that it feels very intense. All right. Just holding the hand of your soulmate can be electrifying.
They say sometimes, opposites attract, and that people who are very different can have, a really good relationship. And that seems to contrast a little bit with the idea of a soulmate, where it seems like you have more similarities. So that brings me to my question that, do you believe two people who are not soulmates can have a loving and lasting relationship that is as good as someone who, they really connect as soulmates?
Whoa, that's a loaded question. I know a lot of people who are content and happy in long-term relationships with their, what we might call a life partner, but the level of intimacy and connection isn't there that you would find with soulmates. Does that mean that they shouldn't be together? No. It means that they've found a person that they're comfortable spending their life with, going through life with. It's the level of connection and intimacy that is the difference. So I guess the answer is, yeah, I can be, as an example, maybe it was the time that I grew up. It was a lot more common then, but there's I don't know, maybe a dozen couples that got together when I was in high school that I still follow on Facebook, and and they got married soon after high school, and they have been together now, raised families. They've been together. They're still together. Seem like they're very much in love. Now, did they just all happen to have their soulmate in the classroom with them, when they met? It's conceivable, but that the odds of that would be kind of kind of off. But they've spent a lifetime together, and they still seem to be happy, at least from the outside. And I can't tell you that, but that, they decided when they were 17, 18, a couple of them got together when they were like 16, not married, but it's when they started dating, and they're still together, and it's 50 some years later. But
I know a couple from that's still together. As far as I know, I'm only 25, so I'm not hasn't been that long. But they got together in, I believe it was 7th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been together ever since.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just interesting, that you brought that up.
Yeah, and I'd have to talk to them to see whether or not, in fact, they are true soulmates. But on the other hand, does it really matter? They're happy.
Good point. Exactly. If you're happy, doesn't matter if it's a true soulmate connection or just a good romantic connection.
I think the whole idea of finding or having a soulmate is that it's just easier, and it takes it up a notch, as Emerald would say. Bam! Let's kick it up a notch. It's a different kind of connection. Most people don't have it. Most people that observe it from the outside don't understand it. Friends that may socialize with that particular couple may not. They may see it, but they don't get it. They don't get it. Do they long for it? Do they want it? Well, perhaps, but they aren't willing to risk what they have to risk to get it or to go looking for it. Sometimes we're lucky and it just shows up, right? You don't have to work too hard with a soulmate because you feel at ease with this person like from day one, okay? And it's, on the other hand, I'm going to throw out, I've talked about all this rosy stuff. Since that person knows you so well and has your best interest at heart, there are times when that person can challenge you like no other person in the world. And that's done from love, but it's also, I'm gonna say what I need to say, and I'm gonna challenge you to do your best. I'm gonna challenge you to be your best. I'm gonna challenge you in whatever way I can. And when I challenge you, I'm really also challenging myself. So these are the some of the factors, some of the things that would help you to see whether or not you're with someone who is a soulmate. In general, you're going to be, it's going to feel peaceful and calm for the most part to be together. It's going to be easy, but the level of connection is something that is that you can't replace. You can't replace. Remember, though, that you still have to keep your own separate identity. Even though you're very close to one another, you shouldn't give up yourself to be with that person. You should still be who you are, which means that we can still be together, but also not everything doesn't have to be the same. In fact, sometimes that might be boring. That's where you were saying, Frank, about opposites. One of the attractions to opposites is that, we don't get bored with each other because we are always challenging each other. We're not thinking the same. We're not doing the same. We don't show up the same. So there's nothing wrong with that. But soulmates tend to have more common ground than non-soulmates.
I have one last question.
Yes, please.
Are there situations where two true soulmates should not be together?
That's a good question too. You're doing good tonight. And this guy's only 25, but he's asking the right questions. Boy, I'd have to think about that one. I could say yes, right? Some might say Bonnie and Clyde were soulmates. I'm serious. I've heard people say that. Well, all right, they were soulmates, but they probably shouldn't have been together. Had they not been together, I don't know that it would have turned out the way that it did or as bad as it did. But, you know, he just happened to be driving along having a flat tire, and there she was, and next thing you know, they ran off together, and then they had their life of crime together. But, you know, they were definitely on the same page. I mean, they sort of fit the criteria. So I think, you know, yes, there are probably times when two soulmates shouldn't be together. Certainly if there's violence or, you know, anything like that, which hopefully there wouldn't be, but, you know, or criminal activity. I mean, probably a lot of soulmates are partners in crime, like Bonnie and Clyde. So how did I get from finding your perfect soulmate to Bonnie and Clyde? I'm not sure. I think things have gone downhill quickly tonight, but we're just about to wrap up. And so hopefully you've got this idea now about a soulmate. I wanted to bring that up tonight just because I thought, well, that might be kind of fun. You know, if you've got questions or want to more about this particular topic, drop us a line. You can drop it at kcaaradio.com. And we're glad that you were here with us tonight, and I hope you have a safe, enjoyable week ahead. And Father John will be back next week, and we'll be here. So you guys take care. I'm sure I'll be back and around these parts again. So I'll see you all when I see you, and talk to you when I talk to you. So have a good one.
KCAA Loma Linda. Listen on 1050 AM.